So, my first question for you is what inspired you and your program to increase accessibility and responsiveness for survivors who use substances?
Yes, absolutely. We can't be everything to everyone, and we know that. But one of the things that we noticed was in our programming, in our rules a few years ago. It just seemed like that was such a huge barrier. And if you're in social work and you're studying social services, there are all these I call them buzzwords. I'm not a social worker, so I'll say that. I'll announce that. And there's all these buzzwords that everyone uses: trauma informed, harm reduction, survivor centered. We use all those words, but are we really being that way? And what I found in looking at our rules, was there were a lot of barriers to coming into a program. You had to be clean for 30 days. You had to remain clean. You had to, I was thinking, I know for a fact that when you go to social work school, you learn about coping mechanisms, you learn about maladaptive behaviors, and you learn that a person's going to do what they need to do to survive. And nothing should stand in the way of safety. Nothing. And so, in looking at that and truly making it this like kind of my center focus and believing in that, I fought for it. And I had to do some investigating of why do we have those rules? One of the things with rule reduction is you have to kind of go back to the beginning of how did you go from this inspirational organization? How did you go to this place of wanting to heal and wanting to help to a space where you're almost similar to like a detention center where you have these very strict protocols? Where does that come from? And then you find out that it's from maybe one or two incidences of something that didn't go right. And so maybe there's a person who was using substances and using on the premise, and it became an issue. And so now, you have this blanket rule, but you forget that that was one person compared to the hundreds of people that you could help if you don't have that rule. And that was where my framework, that's where my state of mind was coming. It's like, am I hurting or am I helping? And if you're coming into a place where someone's looking to get help, and that help also includes help for substance use, right? That could be. And the first thing you do is do a urine screen, like how invasive, how much of a detriment that is. And you do have to take a moment to put yourself in a person's shoes. And the other thing that you need to do is ask the people that you're helping, ask the people that you're trying to help. And so doing those combinations of things, really holistically looking at your program, seeing what's keeping people from being in your program, coming to your program, one, and when they're there, keeping them from having measures of success. And that's the other piece is what is successful for me as an individual might be very different for the individual that I'm trying to assist. And so oftentimes we have these huge benchmarks of success, but success could also be coming and putting your foot at the front door and having the courage to come and get help. So we did a big rule reduction revisement. We got some help from other organizations to see what really helps and what really works. And what we found is, just as I started, we can't be everything to everyone. And I'll give just a quick example. We have assisted people that were addicted to, different narcotics or maybe heroin. That's a big thing in the area right now, a big substance use issue in the area. And what we found, and what the survivor found, was that our lack of rules, if you will, we don't have a curfew. We don't have these things at our shelter that you might need that structure, but that's a very honest conversation. And that's a conversation where we discuss what your goals are and what you need. And the rules would be something like, well, you can't use here. And we need to make sure that the children that are accompanying you are well kept, and same thing for you. And so those are the two things. And if we see that together, we can get help together. So what we found is that it was really helpful for the client, for sure, for the survivor that we're assisting, and for their families, because again, there are kids in tow as well. They need a safe place to be, even if their parent is using, or there's also very functional users as well, right?
Mhm.
But the other thing that we found was once the staff was able to let go of this need to control the environment so much, the staff realized, wow, this is so much easier. I'm no longer in a push-pull relationship with the survivor. So it was mutually beneficial for the staff, for the survivor, and then in turn, obviously, the organization and then the greater good. So in the end, with using the actual or utilizing the collaborative was really helpful as well, because we got to hear that everyone was kind of experiencing those same thoughts, and hearing different perspectives was really great, but also having that guide of how to dissect those pieces, how to get to the ask the right questions, so that way you can formulate the best answers. And so it was really, really great. And now with a lot of things being legalized in our area as well, it keeps us from having to keep someone from getting assistance because they smoke marijuana to calm down, or they have a drink at the end of the night, or maybe they drink throughout the day, but they're functioning, they're working, their kids are taken care of. Again, not putting barriers in place has been really great.
Yeah. And I'm hearing how, at first you need to kind of go back, right? You need to look at like, where did this come from?
Exactly. Like, why do we have such an absurd rule? Right.
And then really talking with staff, talking with people who have used the services, who are in services, and then also being able to connect with other programs and really collaborating throughout the process, and how then you are able to, it makes total sense that people would feel like they could actually advocate when they're not busy trying to enforce rules.
Exactly. And even, I'll use the example of the person that was um, using, there was kind of leaving at night and with the children, and we'd say, okay, it's your decision to leave at night with your kids, but what I want to let you know is that it can be dangerous at night. And so can we have a conversation just about what you're doing to keep safe, right? And we've had a conversation with someone that we thought, well, maybe they're doing the same thing. And it turns out they're like Uber driving at night, picking up, drunk college students in the area. And that's the best way for them to make money. So it was pick up the kids, drop them off at mom, go make my money for 5 or 6 hours, pick up the kids, get them breakfast. I go to sleep while they're at school, and then we start all over again. I mean, and again, it's this idea of, we assume that we know what's best, but we know what they say about assuming. So, it's this idea that like give folks an opportunity to talk and to explain, and you as the service provider, you believe and you listen and you plan along. That's it. That's it. It's just been so freeing. It's just been such a freeing experience. There are obviously moments of frustration, but once you recenter yourself and refocus and help the client refocus, you're just doing great work in the end. And the collaboration has been helpful. Collaboration's also been helpful in hearing what doesn't work as well. It's not just about what does work. It's also helpful to hear the woes, because then you can analyze that too. Like, oh, well, have you thought about that this is curfew has become an issue because a person might feel like they've been being treated like a child, or like their abuser treated them, and that you're creating a hostile space. And maybe it's just a conversation of, well, because we want to make sure that you're safe, can we put in a safety plan? Can you call me when you're on your way to the front, so that way I can be looking out for you? If it's a matter of safety, you can get hurt in the broad daylight, So you're making arbitrary rules and not even arbitrary, like fake realities, which are oppressive. And so you start focusing on how do you debunk oppression. And that's really, to me, a bit of the bottom line.
Yes. And I can already hear in the examples you've provided how easy it would be for bias to start creeping in, for people to be understanding with this person, but making assumptions with that person. And
Absolutely.
how this approach just really helps to notice when we're making assumptions, to develop that awareness and to really counteract the biases that come up in the work.
Absolutely. And it's okay to check yourself. I always tell people your initial thought is something you can't help. That's what's implicit about it. You cannot help it. But it is your responsibility to have a second thought, which will then change your action. And that's the part. If you're acting on your first thought and you know in the end that that was not the right choice, then you're being negligent. And that's always my thought, is that like, it's a, we can't help kind of how our brains have been shaped, but you can't help that second thought. You can't think, okay, am I being oppressive because I'm afraid, or because of my lived experience that going out in the middle of the night has left me vulnerable? And check yourself there, because this person knows the neighborhood, this is what they have to do, and it's not you, it's them, so it's hard. I know it's hard at times, and I've had to have many a pep talk, many a conversation of like, okay, well, let's think about it this way. This person has been resilient enough to get here and has made it here, given that story that you just heard. There's something to that. There's something to that. There's strength there. There's empowerment there. Utilize that, as opposed to, fear mongering,
Yeah.